Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good evening. You're watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. Some governorates of the Sultanate are currently witnessing dust-raising winds with gusts between 90 to 93 kilometers per hour, which may cause poor visibility and danger for road users. In Nizwa Hospital, a medical conference on brain stroke discusses ways of treating such cases and the latest developments in this field. A traditional shooting competition is concluded in the Wilaya of Al-Khabora. And Yemen's former president Abdurabu Mansour Hadi escapes house arrest as Houthi militia men open fire on protesters in the central city of Ib, killing one person and wounding another. Those were the headlines, and now for the news in detail. His Majesty Sultan Qaboos has sent a cable of greetings to Her Excellency Dr. Perliette Louise, Governor-General of St. Lucia, on her country's independence anniversary. Some governorates of the Sultanate are currently witnessing dust-raising winds with gusts between 90 to 93 kilometers per hour, which may cause poor visibility and danger for the road user. It is expected that the southerly winds are to change to northwesterly cold, starting from early morning tomorrow, and it will continue until the next 2 days, causing relative decrease in temperature. The weather condition has affected the Sultanate's atmosphere and caused some traffic accidents. A number of light vehicles collided with each other on Main Street in the Wilaya of Sohar, causing light injuries to the drivers and damages to some vehicles. A medical conference on brain stroke was held in Nizwa Hospital in the Governorate of Dakhiliya. It witnessed a participation from more than 100 specialists working in various health institutions in the Sultanate. The conference discussed a number of topics, namely a study on the establishment of a brain stroke unit in Nizwa Hospital, ways of treating such cases, as well as the latest developments in this field. The participants expressed that the conference was beneficial to exchange knowledge and develop their capabilities in a way that reflects positively on the services provided to the patients. With the participation of more than 250 shooters from various wilayas of the Governorate of North Batana, a traditional shooting competition was concluded in the Wilaya of Al-Khabora. It was presided over by His Excellency Dr. Abdul Munim bin Mansour Lahsani, Minister of Information, with the attendance of His Excellency Dr. Abdullah bin Nasser Al-Harasi, Chairman of the Public Authority for Radio and Television. It came to preserve the deep-rooted Omani traditional sports. The competition included individual contests in teams, contest in clay pigeon shooting. Traditional weapons were used in the competition, where the participants focus on the target and shoot from a distance. The competition was accompanied by some Omani singing arts. At the end of the event, winning individuals and teams were honoured. According to statistics issued by National Centre for Statistics and Information, the total value of fishing until the end of 2014 reached more than 179 million Omani Rials. The incoming catch with its different types witnessed an increase by 1.9% until the end of 2014 compared to the previous years. These statistics also revealed that the value of fishing increased by 0.9% to reach more than 205,000 tonnes by the end of 2014. Still to come in our news bulletin. French President François Hollande visited the International Farm Show on the outskirts of Paris. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. Yemen's former president Abdurrabbu Mansour Hadi escaped weeks of house arrest by the Houthi militia at his official residence today and fled to his hometown of Aden. Sources close to him said that he will make a speech later in the day on an Aden television station. Hadi's flight to Aden follows an agreement between Yemen's rival factions yesterday, brokered by the United Nations, to set up a transitional council that keeps the parliament in place and gives a voice to some other groups. Earlier today, activists said Houthi militia men opened fire on protesters in the central city of Ib, killing one person and wounding another. The crowd had gathered in a square to demonstrate against the Houthis' role in overturning the government last month. Following the shooting, thousands more people took to the streets in protest. Witnesses said the Houthis were deploying more security forces in response. Eurozone finance ministers and Greece have approved a final agreement for a 4-month bailout extension, announced Eurogroup President Jeroen Dijsselbloem during a press conference yesterday. Finance ministers had discussed a Greek request for a 6-month extension that had been submitted on Thursday. Dijsselbloem said a draft statement by Eurozone finance ministers ultimately approved the extension of Greece's bailout by 4 months. The extension will bridge time for discussions on a possible follow-up arrangement between the Eurogroup, the institutions and Greece, according to the Eurogroup statement. Dijsselbloem added Greece should submit by Monday a letter listing what reform measures and new commitments it will adopt. The list will be further specified and then proposed to the institutions for agreement by the end of April, the statement said. If international markets refuse to finance Greece's government, it is said that the country could exit from the single currency. United Nations war crimes investigators are considering publishing names of suspects involved in Syria's 4-year war and are also pushing for new ways to bring them to justice in a radical change of strategy announced yesterday. Diplomatic sources said the Independent Commission of Inquiry, led by Brazilian investigator Paulo Pinheiro, may publish some or all of hundreds of names on secret lists of suspects at the UN Human Rights Council on March 17th. The first 4 lists include military and security commanders, the heads of detention facilities, and commanders of non-state armed groups, that of radical groups. The report, the latest in a series documenting human rights abuses such as torture, sex crimes, murder and the use of child soldiers, said the international community had failed in its duty to protect Syria's civilians. The fighting has killed more than 200,000 people and forced 10 million from their homes, triggering a regional humanitarian crisis that shows no sign of ending. Hundreds of people in Dubai were evacuated from one of the world's tallest residential buildings today when fire swept through the Torch, a 79-story skyscraper. Dubai's police chief General Khamis Matar said the fire appeared to be the result of an accident and did not suspect it was caused by any deliberate criminal act. He added that an investigation had started to determine the cause of the blaze. A witness said flames shot out from 2 sides of the building as glass and metal rained down from near the summit of the structure, which stands more than 330 meters tall. Matar said 4 people had suffered minor injuries. At least a dozen fire trucks extinguished the blaze several hours after the fire alarm went off, around 2 a.m. local time. Residents of neighbouring towers were returning to their homes around 4:30 a.m., but residents of the Torch were told they would not be allowed back into the building until the fire officials gave approval later in the day. Aero India 2015, the premier air show of Asia, hosted a range of defence equipment showcased by firms from the world's leading defence suppliers on the 4th day of the exposition in India's IT hub, Bengaluru yesterday. The 10th edition of the international event is themed on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's ambitious Make in India project in aerospace, defence, civil aviation, airport infrastructure and defence engineering. A number of countries like the US, Israel, Russia and France are participating in the event. Israel, India's second largest supplier of defence equipment after Russia, had IAI Super Heron HF at display. The biennial Aero India, which began in 1996, has become a major platform for armament giants to initiate defense deals. The event is being attended by 250 Indian companies and 300 foreign firms. French President François Hollande said today that the country's vulnerable agricultural sector would not be forgotten by politicians in the capital. Speaking at an international farm show on the outskirts of Paris, Hollande told reporters that he understood the plight of farmers because he too came from a rural agricultural area. Hollande spoke about how the agricultural sector was affected by external political situations which lead to price fluctuations for their products. And he quoted the example of the current crisis in Ukraine and Russia. The Paris International Agricultural Show is taking place from the 21st of February to the 1st of March 2015 at Paris Expo Porte de Versailles. Residents of the coastal Queensland town of Yeppoon returned to their homes to assess damage and clean up today after Cyclone Marcia hit Australia yesterday. There are no reports of death or serious injuries, but the cyclone tore apart hundreds of homes and cut power to tens of thousands. Cyclone Marcia brought with it winds in excess of 200 kph and heavy rains. The Bureau of Meteorology warned of destructive winds, heavy rains and abnormally high tides as rivers swelled and dam gates were triggered in southeastern parts of the state. But overall, authorities were relieved that the impact of the storm was less than expected. In Rockhampton, there were long lines at the only fuel station in the town that had power to pump petrol, as residents tried to refill their cars and collect fuel to run generators. Throughout the suburbs, trees fell across roads and damaged cars. The airport remains closed but may reopen overnight with a reduced runway length. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. Some governorates of the Sultanate are currently witnessing dust-raising winds with gusts between 90 to 93 kilometers per hour, which may cause poor visibility and danger for road users. In Nizwa Hospital, a medical conference on brain stroke discusses ways of treating such cases and the latest developments in this field. A traditional shooting competition is concluded in the Wilaya of Al-Khabora. And Yemen's former president Abdurrahman Mansour Hadi escapes house arrest as Houthi militia men open fire on protesters in the central city of Ib, killing one person and wounding another. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the newsroom and the studios, it's good night.